we are back with the new Pickled Dragon Unscripted after quite a long hiatus. Had some health issues, a couple surgeries, but finally passed all that. Good times. But the exciting news is we're back with a new co-host, the amazing Dracoya, who I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey guys, I'm Dracoya. I also work with Scale 75 USA and Avant Art right now. So stay tuned. I've got a lot of future events that I will be disclosing.
Right on. So yeah, for our first video back, and I almost forgot that as always here at the Pickled Dragon, we're having a drink. In this case, this time it's the 10-year-old Bullet. It's a local distillery here in Louisiana. And it's quite good.
I got margaritas.
Margaritas all day long.
Homemade margaritas all day long. I'm on tequila, so we're going to make bad decisions today.
Right on. All right. That's excellent. So for our first video, we didn't really want to dwell on all the missteps that WoTC has been making lately, but we did want to kind of talk about what we think WoTC could do to win hearts and minds again, because it seems like they have really stepped on one landmine or one garden rake after another.
Yeah.
And it's whether it's the OGL crisis where, there's the faction who said they're trying to steal creators' work, versus WoTC, who kind of played dumbfounded during the whole thing. There was the disastrous creator panel, horrific interviews when they were trying to do damage control that only seemed to throw gasoline on the fire.
So much worse.
Yes. They were sending the union busting Pinkertons out to clobber gamers, which is,
yep.
I didn't even know the Pinkertons still existed, which is crazy. I mean, it's like, the notion is absolutely madness that they even exist anymore.
And the fact that they would think it's a good idea to send them out to begin with, that blows my mind.
Yeah, and if any of these things are familiar to you, there are a billion videos already out there on each one of these topics that you can just check out. And even outside of Dungeons and Dragons, the whole Magic the Gathering community is also kind of upset with them. And obviously the Pinkertons was related to Magic the Gathering, and even just silly things like their 30th anniversary packs where they reprinted a bunch of very rare and expensive cards, and then they decided to sell them for $400 a pack. I mean, it's just insane, and in general, just how they haven't handled Magic the Gathering for the last several years very well. And again, there's a million videos out there on these subjects.
Well, and then what we wanted to talk about is kind of how they had started, like how they had created Pathfinder, and also the things that they could do differently about the community, because I think that you and I can agree this is a community that we love, and as frustrated as we are with them right now, we want to see them be better, do better, because this is not a community that we want to go away. It's still a community we really want to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year obviously has been a rough year for WoTC. They made a lot of mistakes and in a very short period of time. But really, there has been a slow build to these things, a slow build and frustration. The last several books, with the exception of maybe Dragonlance, have been duds. I've heard that they're just planning to reprint or redo the whole Planescape book because of how bad it was received. I think that they only show up to like 8 conventions a year, and that's it. And it's in limited capacities. They might do a panel, or they might run a game for celebrities, which doesn't really reach out to your average gamer.
No, they've lost their connection with the community that they used to have. Now, I know you had told me about something called Greyhawk.
the living Greyhawk.
Living Greyhawk. Now
Yeah.
that sounds like such a cool idea, and they went away from that. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about the Living Greyhawk and how that started.
Well, and the living Greyhawk. Well, I mean, I think what we have to do is relate it to the current Adventures League, which to me, the rules around Adventures League feel rather hollow. There doesn't seem to be any cohesive story to it. It just seems to be a mode for people to just build a character so they can bring them to conventions, and the rules around it, like they've eliminated gold out of it. I mean, it just doesn't feel like a very organic experience when you run Adventures League, at least to me. And I'm sure there are people who love it. I'm sure there are people who just are interested in building the strongest character possible.
Most of the people that I know are going farther and farther away from it. I have a couple friends who were DMs for Adventure League, and one of them is moving to a different place, and he just threw out like 20, 30 something things from Adventure League because he's kind of over it. And I think that's a way a lot of people are starting to feel. But, you actually bring up a really good point about creating a story. Like, it would have been so cool if every single month they sent out a new quest or a new storyline for all of their DMs, again, to get them more involved in the community. And that way people are looking forward to seeing what they have to offer every month.
Yeah, and that's when you mentioned Living Greyhawk, that's what they had with Living Greyhawk. It was a very organic experience. But I'm going to share my screen real quick here. There is this chart you can see here. And what they did with Living Greyhawk is they split the country and even Europe up into parts of Greyhawk. And so if you were in Michigan, you were part of Ferrandi. And the adventures that were written for that region could only be played in that region. So if you were in Wisconsin in the High Folk, and you heard of an awesome magic item in Ferrandi, you and your friends would try to find the con that was running in Michigan at the time, and you'd take a road trip out there to play, to try to find that holy sword. It was the players got to go on an actual quest, and
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a story that revolved around each of these regions, and they all tied back to an overarching storyline that culminated. I believe there were like there was like a level 20 adventure thread that kind of culminated the entire thing, but it was.
I love how Bandit Kingdoms, Texas and Oklahoma. I'm originally from Texas, and that's perfect. Perfect.
Yes, the Bandit Kingdoms. And it's just so it was just so much fun, and people were really genuinely excited. Now, obviously, a cynical person would say, well, this is going to take a lot of resources and money on the part of WoTC. We're not saying that winning hearts and minds is going to be a free endeavor. They're going to have to, I believe they're going to have to put out some money to make these changes and create an experience for the players.
It's so much easier for them to do something like that now. I mean, you can create an app, say, okay, pay $5 a month to be a part of this world where every single place that you go, you can be a part of everything. Like, they could have made some pretty good money by having people subscribe to an app and rebooting this whole idea.
Yeah, I just think that there's a way for them to invest in the community, and the community will respond by supporting them. And it goes back to what I was saying before about conventions. They're not they haven't been to the biggest gaming convention, Gen Con, in years. And the bar was set by TSR, and even though it's been years since TSR has been around, TSR used to build a castle at Gen Con. I have a shot here from 1992. This is the 1992 Gen Con, where people were going into the castle and checking out products, playing games, and it was an experience to go to Gen Con, and everyone was always very excited to see what TSR was doing next.
I love this. I love the castle.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it takes an investment of dollars to do stuff like this. But again, we're talking about things that WoTC could do to bring the flock back into the fold, right?
You gotta spend money to make money, and
exactly.
right now we're so disconnected from the community.
Exactly. I want to, like you said at the beginning, we want to see them succeed. So so to get to the real meat of the subject, so and it's kind of, the theme is a return to community and a community focused effort on the part of WoTC. So the one thing that I think that, especially in this day and age, that companies need to do, to, not WoTC included, need to do to really in a large part keep people happy, is avoid politics.
I agree. This should be above politics. This is a game, for crying out loud. This should be the one place we can go where it doesn't really matter about what's going on in the world. This is our place to escape. I know that my friends and I, every single Friday we would play, and no matter how hard or horrible or amazing our week was, we always had D&D to escape to, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and I think that the response at the creators panel to their new online experiment that they're running just shows exactly how much how important it is for many players to play in person. With the pandemic, Roll20 and those blew up, but I know there are people that are perfectly happy to play online, but there is a significant portion, I dare say a majority of gamers, who would rather play in person with their friends face to face and have that human connection. And I truly believe that is what WoTC should be fostering. Now, that's not to say that they shouldn't compete with Roll20, build this cool system that they have going, their tabletop online experience, or whatever they're referring to it as. Great, go do that, and the people that will enjoy it will do it. But I truly believe, and this is me, running games at game stores, running games in a public setting, being active in the community. This is me saying, my opinion is that the majority of people want to play in person.
Right. I agree.
And that's what WoTC should foster.
And there's so many cons that WoTC could go to and explore. I mean, there's KublaCon that I'm going to later this month. That's a board game convention. As far as I know, they're not going to make any kind of attendance. There's all the miniature painting conventions that I've gone to.
And as much as they've begun, they've made a splash with miniatures, you would think that they would want to make make a presence known at those conventions.
You would think.
Send 10, 20 starter kits with a few WoTC representatives out to these conventions, and have little tables where people can do a paint and take, where they paint a miniature and they get to take it with them for $5 or whatever. And they get shown some tips, and there's goodwill built there.
Well, that's a brilliant idea. I mean, Reaper does a similar process where they have tables just covered in miniatures for you to just take them. It's fine. There's no charge. That's included in the fee to get in there. And the fact that WoTC hasn't created their own convention or gone to any is astounding.
And Gary Con, they do a paint and take, but since it's the old school gamers, they're all the little 25 millimeter miniatures that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. and a lot of them are actual originals where the guys running the table have boxes of these things left over from the old days, and they'll just be like, yeah, you can have that one, you know. And it's they're old, very poor sculpts, but they're just so quaint, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and it's an opportunity to build goodwill on their part. But even more so, I think game stores are the place. And now game stores have really been struggling to you know, and it's always been a business where it's a struggle to stay in business.
Right.
Because it's such, especially with things like Amazon undercutting them at every turn. And then when WoTC started selling magic cards on Amazon, that hurt them. But WoTC used to, in a D&D level, now they still on a Magic the Gathering level will send promos and have the launch parties and all that stuff. But at a D&D level, there used to be, for Adventurers League, they'd have the little folders that everyone could, you know, have for their characters. They had the little faction cards, so players could join a faction, and whether it be the Harpers or the, you know, the Iron League or whatever, they could join those factions in the Forgotten Realms setting. And they originally they would have faction adventures, and they've gotten away from that. You know, they used to send out posters and promos and extras for players to help bolster game stores, and they've gotten away from that. And I think game stores are a prime place for people not only to learn a game, but to you know, foster that
The community.
Yeah, exactly, the community.
I completely agree. I mean, you know, you're talking about miniature painting. That's what happens at most of the game stores. They always have almost every game store I know, they have a board game night, and then they have a painting night. And if WoTC played their cards right, they would have a Dungeons and Dragons night. But more and more people are going away from Adventure League and Dungeons and Dragons. I think a lot more people are getting turned on by Pathfinder.
Yeah, and all the mistakes they made in the past are what created a lot of their competition. You know, Pathfinder came out of them trying to take all their toys and go home when they released 4th edition. You know, and Pathfinder was the result of that. And now they're Pathfinder 2nd edition, when these recent missteps happened, blew up. They sold more books in a month than they would have over a year.
Right.
Game stores couldn't keep them in.
Right.
And that's just dangerous for them, because a lot of these players, you know, a lot of the campaigns and such will last years. So if a player walks away from a system, they could be conceivably losing that customer for an extended period of time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one good rule book will last you at least a few years. I mean, if a lot of my friends, they have gone away from D&D and they started Pathfinder a little bit before quarantine, and as far as I know, a lot of them are still on Pathfinder. They still haven't come back to D&D, and I'm not really sure if they're going to.
I started a D&D night at my local game store. I grew it to 3 tables. We have about 20 players. But when all the controversies hit, you know, people were like, so when we're done with this campaign, what are we going to play next? Like, they were ready to like wrap up. Everyone was very I think hurt by the whole situation, and
you can't blame them. But this is a really good point. So you are just one person, and you grew the community at your game store all the way up to 20 different people. Imagine what WoTC could do with their resources and their size.
Yeah, and we're not talking about sending out free players handbooks for every player. We're talking about a poster here and there, or some promotional dice to help support the game store that's trying to get players in, or you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, and players be like, hey, this is kind of cool.
Just be involved.
Yes, be present. But even more so than any of that, the most important thing that WoTC could do is just deliver quality. You know, like I said, the last several books have been kind of duds. And especially at the price tags they're asking for their books, $50-$60 a book, which fine, you know, if that's what they cost, that's what they cost. I don't know the ins and outs of their finances or their profit margins on a book, so I'm not going to try to second guess them on that. But you gotta, at those prices, you gotta deliver quality, and
Right.
you know it's not good the way
I
it
agree.
is right now. So we'll see what comes out of the one D&D, not one D&D. It's just 5e new thing coming out. I don't know. They keep changing what they're delivering, but we'll see what happens. But in conclusion, I think that you know, we don't want to see WoTC fail more than anything else, because I'm a very nostalgic person. I love things that have a history to them, a continuity to them. D&D is one of those things to me that I can look back and have a lot of very fond memories about all the different players I've played with over the years. I've played every edition. And so I don't want to just see it go away. You know, I want to see the Dungeons and Dragons label continue on. But that said, I also want to see it handled with respect to the players and the community. So,
And right now, I think a lot of us just don't feel very respected between the things that they are doing, and then, you know, things like Magic the Gathering, like you had mentioned, and the IP fiasco, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, going forward, we do have a lot of plans for future videos. If you ever have any questions, as always, we might be answering some of your questions in short. I have a huge backlog of your questions. I have to apologize to all you people that have submitted them. With everything that's gone on in my life, I've fallen well behind, but maybe we can start answering those in shorts. Dracoya is going to answer some. Yes, she's going to answer. She's going to be designing her own campaign and own world and whatnot. So maybe we'll do a video on that and kind of track her progress. It would be fun. That would be
all
fun.
right.
But we are going to obviously do giveaways here on the YouTube channel, which we've already got a backlog of a few items that we might give away here soon. And what else we got, Dracoya?
And I'll also be talking about Scale 75 USA and some of the fun events that they're going to be doing in the United States, as well as Avant Art, a brand new company. They have their very own Kolinsky brushes right now made in the United States. So they're expanding as well. So there's going to be a lot of fun things that we get to talk about.
Right on, right on. Well, with that, I think Dracoya is going to close us out the right way.
Yes, like, comment, subscribe, and we hope you come back for another round.
Ooh, clink.
Yeah.